We're live. Hi, everybody.
Howdy. Hi, Nancy Jean. How you doing?
No, I'm doing fine. I'm telling Teri off camera that I've been having breathing problems, and I had some last fall too. And the allergy stuff just sort of treated it, and this time it's not touching it. So I'm sort of slowing some things down, but not completely. I'm here for us today,
Yay.
so we can
I'm
talk
glad
about
you
having
are.
snakes in your hair.
Yeah. Snakes in your hair. I love that you brought that up because I've been feeling a lot of Medusa energy around us
Hmm.
right now.
Yeah, we're looking at today for those of you who didn't read the intros. Medusa. There she is with her little snake saying, "Get the fuck away." Um, I should have said that. Sorry, we may not get any monetization off this. Yeah,
I
Joyful
didn't hear
Journey.
anything.
Hi, Miriam. Hi. Uh, this is Medusa in. It's a very famous image of her. It's off a temple somewhere. But this, we're going to put a different Medusa up. This is Medusa, and we're going to talk about. But look at how pretty she is. And Teri, do you want to tell the legend and
Yeah, let me pull it up and I'll read it. Oh, that's early voter. If you don't want that.
no? No, everyone, early voting started, and I actually have a list. If you type your state in and in the comments, I'll tell you when yours opens. Go.
Oh, great. Okay. So the myth of Medusa. Medusa was a priestess to Athena, Athens,
Mm-hmm.
is the goddess of war and wisdom. She is also the only virgin goddess. Part of the requirements of being a priestess to Athena would have included Medusa promising to remain chaste while in service. Then imagine this. One day you're gathering water for service in the temple, and here comes Poseidon and sees her. Medusa was rumored to be incredibly beautiful. So, as what happens in all myths, Poseidon sees her, wants her, and takes her. It is said she ran to the temple of Athena seeking protection. Now, this makes sense why. Who better to protect Medusa than Athena, her patron god?
Mm-hmm.
Who better to protect a woman's virtue than Athena, one of the three virgin goddesses?
Mm-hmm.
3. Who better to protect Medusa against Poseidon than Athena, an enemy to Poseidon? But that isn't what happens. Poseidon rapes Medusa on the floor of the temple of Athena. Athena comes and sees her temple has been defiled. He doesn't blame the god, and this is important. She blames the human, Medusa. Medusa's sisters come to her defense and thus suffer part of the punishment. Athena curses Medusa with a head full of snakes, eternal life, and that any man who looks at her will be turned to stone. This punishment turns Medusa into a monster that is isolated from the world of men. Thus, she can never be near another man again.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Okay,
so,
I have a couple more wrinkles on this story.
yeah,
Among other things, is there was when you go back to the oldest form of the origin myth. This myth has gone through some transformation over time. Um, Person in North Carolina, you're going to have to contact your county to see when they start early voting. So just look up county elections wherever you are. There are some states that different counties have different rules. Okay, back to Medusa. This is men making it as hard on women as they can, so it falls into this.
yeah,
um, when Medusa picked, when Medusa was picked to be a priestess, everyone commented on how her hair was otherworldly and absolutely gorgeous. And Athena, you got to remember, their gods were not like normal god. Well, they were normal gods. They had bad tempers and they had bad days. They had jealousies, and supposedly Athena was somewhat jealous of Medusa. But then when Medusa got raped by Poseidon, and the goddess yelled at her for defiling the temple, and she's like, "I was just here," um, and turned her into the monster. It's not just that she turned her into the monster, but she turned her two sisters who tried to defend her. They're the other two Gorgons, are her sisters.
Oh.
And they all lived in this dark cave where they didn't ever want to go out from because, who wants to go out with snakes in their hair? And Athena helped the guy who killed Medusa. His name was Perseus. And Athena helped him by creating the helmet that he could wear to appear invisible, and also creating the shield that was so perfectly burnished in a mirror so he could hold it up so he could see where she was when he cut her head off. So Athena's got a lot to answer for in this. But, when they're the gods and the goddesses, they can do whatever they want and nobody says anything. But when I was reading the full origin myth up through Perseus killing her, I was kind of going, that sounds a whole lot like, no offense, suburban women. Who, when people say, why do suburban women turn on their own? Why are suburban women voting against their own interests? And I guess it's just jealousy. I know that when I was younger, my mom worked with a bunch of boards in my hometown. And she always said, I love to be on boards where it's only men. Because when you get women in there, they start fighting. And I used to hear all those sorts of things that I kind of went, that makes no sense. I was already ahead of the curve. But there is a lot of jealousy and backbiting that happens among women or of a certain age. I'm at the end of that age. A lot of women that were raised when I were raised to dislike other women. Don't trust them.
A lot of judgment. And I think also that she was sexually abused. A lot of times society, if somebody is sexually abused, society doesn't do it, not so much about the abuser, but traditionally it's that abused person, whether they're a man or a woman, they are looked down upon. Like that's why so many people don't say anything about abuse, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't come forward about childhood abuse or date rape or whatever's going on, or physical abuse, because it's their fault. That happens a lot to the victims. So how we treat victims, how we treat children, how we treat our elderly. I mean, it says a lot about society. So I love that we're working with Medusa today because it's all changing. That divine feminine energy is coming in, and it is changing. We're flipping that story.
Yeah, and if you study in astrology, the period of time that the patriarchy took over was the period of time that the Medusa myth was born.
Yeah.
It was another way of saying we're better than them. I mean, at least we don't got snakes in our hair. And the guy who kills Medusa, Perseus, he's actually a rather pliable young man. He's a sucker. He'll do things that the gods tell him to do because they're the gods. And the other thing about that I think happens about sexual abuse is assault. They just use a very personal weapon. And we don't think of it as assault. We make it its own class of behavior instead of treating it like we would.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really sad. Everybody's got a lot to say. Yes, lots of puts downs from other women your entire life. Glad it's over. Sal says, we need to step up, Judy. Sandra says, yes, we're stigmatized. We're the ones exiled from the family. And why do men think they are, let me see. Sorry, it's hopping. Why do men think they can do these things to women? Yeah. And sometimes women to men now too, Mimi. I mean, and it's just, there's also so much that goes on with that, that like you're more likely to commit suicide. You're more likely to be raped, because you kind of followed that plan that if you were abused while you were a child, then this is what you know. And it's kind of like, you kind of find yourself in those situations again until you get enough therapy that you get out of it, or you grow
Mhm.
out of it, you figure it out.
Yeah,
But
we're doing shadow work now.
yeah, lots of shadow work.
And okay, this is a comment. If you're subscribed to Kamala Harris, she shares a link that will link you to your state and how you can do early voting. That'll be much more definitive than,
Yeah.
because I got a quick list and it's got most of them. But when I looked I said North Carolina's not on here, and then it started saying you have to go to the county, you have to get these kind of forms. I think almost all of their early voting is based on mail-in ballots. Not they don't have early vote, but apparently you can go to the county office in most cases. In Texas, they make it easy. It's the only thing they make easy. We have 2.5 weeks of early voting, and you can vote, and they set them up in almost every precinct.
Yeah.
And let's see, I had another comment that I wanted to highlight.
Sal says, lots of crap when she worked, jealousy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Sally was a scientist, so I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're stigmatized. We're the ones exiled from the family.
Yeah. I've witnessed that.
Mm-hmm. And I had one more that I had. Talk, Teri.
Oh, okay. Um, Judy, I love this, Judy. Dancing with your shadow drains you, but it's worth
Mhm.
it. Yeah, that's beautiful. And Judy says, women, we tear each other down instead of elevating our fellow women. It does happen so often, right? And it's weird that there's like, after you've been victimized by something like this, you feel like the dark sheep.
Yeah, women, we tear
Hello.
each other down instead of elevating our fellow women.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And it's so sad, but it's changing. We're
Oh yeah, it
changing.
is. It's changing. That attitude's changing. Um, do you ever watch America's Got Talent?
Uh-uh,
Admit it, you don't.
I don't.
Okay, there's a guy on there. He's the host, Teri. He's an African American. He was a football player, big guy. He went and testified to Congress about how he got raped. And trust me, he looks like the last person I'd go, because I'm not going around to abuse anybody. But and he talked about it, and he said, and he talked about the years that it took him to get over it,
Yeah.
and how people look at him and they go. He said, "You think it's just an act of violence and they pick on the weaker women? They don't." He said they pick on the ones they want to take down.
Yeah. Yeah. F you're beautiful. F you're smart. F you're F you have a light around you sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're definitely gonna pick on you.
Right.
So, and Sandra says picking on the most vulnerable. Yeah, the children often. So, Kimberly says, chat just started, and I have 4 deep thoughts to contemplate: ego, selfish versus selfless, fear, and shame.
Yeah.
I,
Well,
I love that,
what a
Kimberly.
way to start your Monday.
Yeah. Judy says, in my group of 6, 3 of us were raped.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that. And that's probably not that uncommon, Judy.
No.
I've I've got and if anybody wants to go to anybody, I have Rachel Grant. There's links to her on my in my information. I've done shows with her. I've had therapy from her, and so has my daughter. And it's all about abuse, sexual
Mm-hmm.
abuse, and rape. So that's a good place to go to for an expert.
Linda's having us all to have a blessed day. Yes.
Thank you, Linda. Thumbs up. Yeah. Yeah. You do learn how to hide your power, don't you? And we don't
Mm-hmm.
have to do that. We don't have to dumb down anymore. And, so I just want to bring up Hillary Clinton,
Mm-hmm.
how she was so disliked. And nobody could really put their finger on it, right? But they did
Mm-hmm.
not like her wanting to share her power with Bill. like
Mhm.
that she was going to come on and help the country. Everybody was like, wait a minute, she's just a girl, you know?
Mhm.
So I kind of felt like that was a lot of what happened with her. Um, and she was so disliked. And when they said that they were going to put her up to be the presidential nominee, I thought, I don't think anybody likes her. And they didn't still. I mean, though I do think she won. And I do think she's remarkable. But oh, she was born in Mercury retrograde, Sandra. Yeah. So yeah, thank you for spiritual and entertainment purposes only healing.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah. But Hillary's something. She's a force. So and there was no way. Like people were just against her. So many of them.
Um, California has early voting from October 7th to November 5th. If you want to take it into a county office or to a drop box, you can do it that way. But as I understand it, California has a really slick mail-in service. So unless you live in a county where you don't trust the people who count it, and you know when you if you mail it in or if you vote early, you can go on the county website the next day, and it'll show that you voted, not how you voted, but that your vote has already been counted. So you can check and make sure that it's in the hands of the people that need it. I'd give it maybe 3 days. I don't know where you live. If I was over where the storms are happening, I'd give it 3 weeks, which is about the end of this election. Um, but a funny thing about a person who he voted early and he heard he could go see his name that he'd voted early. So he went on and looked, and he was a junior. So not only had he voted, but his father had voted, and his father had died 6 months before. So he went around, and finally, that's how I ended up knowing about it, is because we helped them break through the barrier to find out how did his dad vote. And I was part of a federal investigation where they found that this one person had gotten the death rolls, and this was before Dallas took dead people off the voting rolls, and they had a whole list of dead people, and they would get their ballots and they would vote them, and we
Are
took
they
the
in
report on
prison?
it. Hmm?
Are they in prison?
No, it's not a happy story that way,
Uh-huh.
because you have to. We had gotten into it, but we hadn't proved it before the votes were counted, so it didn't count as fraud. Don't ask me how they. This is Texas courts. This is what you got to understand. But the people who had done it, they did it through the only part of the county system that you get both the death rolls and the voting rolls on the same computer was through the sheriff's department. And we actually tracked down the sheriff's office that it was done in just as he resigned. So he didn't have to, if you're a private citizen, you didn't have to, I mean, the way the system was set up, anybody could have walked in his office after hours. And it was very loose. A whole lot got straightened out. And then once a year now, they take all the dead people up. And I'll tell you how many dead people were on our rolls. This was in 2006. And they ran it in June. And before we had 1,200,000 registered voters in Dallas. When they ran the death rolls against it, it went down to 942,000. That many dead people were out there because they had never cleaned the rolls, which is
Wow.
stupid. Why would you not? I mean, everybody thinks, oh, Dad's dead, he's off. So,
Man. So Debbie Three Shifting Veils is here, and she's getting ready for the hurricane.
The second one, she just went through the last one.
Yeah, she's getting ready for this one. A lot of people are getting ready for it today. Yeah, Judy. And Kansas early voting starts on the 19th. Yeah, we already have it in Missouri too, early voting. I think I'm gonna go tomorrow. But you know, I want to bring up sacred rage.
Okay.
Because we're told to be nice girls, right? Who else heard that when you were growing up? Be a nice girl.
They gave up on me. I never heard it much.
You never listened to it, right? I love that. So, you know, we can show our rage. We can show our strength. We don't have to be tied to the outcome. I think that's what we get into. But but really feel your power. And if it's rage, and I feel like Medusa is sacred rage, and Durga Ma is sacred rage,
Mhm.
but using it with love.
Mhm.
So it's a big change to use it with love and witness it, watch it, but don't be tied to the outcome of things. As far as, show your fear. I mean, it's okay to be scared of things that are happening, but just watch it. And then
Mhm.
that kind of removes your energy from it, that witnessing. It's okay to be mad about something,
Mhm.
let it out. That's how we get cancer. We keep it all inside. So let it out, but don't be tied to how things happen, like what this person did to that person. Yeah, it's horrible and you're angry about it, but then let it go.
Mhm.
So release, release, release. Anyway.
Yeah, and also look at your own things. Um, and look at when people point that kind of dislike at you that's got nothing to do with what you're doing, except maybe that you are actually doing something and they are not. Um, but it was I'm trying to figure out how to say this. I went to a college that a lot of the girls that were in school with me, it was a university, were there on beauty pageant scholarships.
Mm-hmm.
So and when you first got on the campus, they took the women aside and they had a special thing for the freshman women. And it was Neiman Marcus came, and they actually came and taught us how to put our makeup on. This was in 1967. And that was a lot of makeup. If you remember what Twiggy looked like, that was a lot of makeup.
That was a lot of makeup.
And so the lady made me up, and this is when I weighed all of 115 pounds, skinny little thing. And she said, "Oh, darling, you just look so pretty. You just need to learn how to do." Well, first, I got better things to do with the first 45 minutes that I'm up and standing than putting war paint on my face. But anyway, she spun me around. I looked in the mirror and I said, "Oh my God, I can look like a bitch too." I was one of the few, I had long, straight hair and I didn't wear makeup. And I was considered a complete hippie just because didn't wear makeup much. I could put it on. And man, I could put those eyelashes on and my eyes could look as big as saucers. Um, but it was like, why do I have to put all that stuff on? Why do I have to put that artifice on in order to get accepted here? So I just didn't do it. I also didn't take, they had a mass psychological test that they made every freshman take, like, would you rather read a book, eat an apple, or kiss your roommate kind of questions. And I got into those and I went, this is weird. So I went up to the front of the room and I handed it in to the guy and I said, I have a stomach ache. I don't think I'm capable of completing this. He said, we'll get a hold of you to have you finish it later. And I'm like, yeah, you got to find me first. And I finished my 4 years there and I never just took their stupid tests. I mean, that kind of quantification, you got to be like everybody else. I was a terrible rebel about that. So I would pull myself away and say, screw you. But I also had to look at some of the people that I judged the second I met them. There were some girls there that had absolutely immaculate makeup on, and they were still a lovely person. It
Yeah.
was not just the makeup. And I knew some that had absolutely lovely faces and had really dark souls. So,
Yeah. Yeah. You just don't know, do you? You just don't know. So I wanted to pull out a card out of my angel deck. And everybody knows this is my favorite card. And it was smack on the bottom. Waiting. So surrender and release.
Yep.
So there's this beautiful angel and she's carrying this big heavy urn and it's filled with all her sorrows, all her grief, and maybe a bunch of stuff if you're like me that
Maybe some
happened
other
when you were
people's stuff
young.
you picked up along the way.
A lot of other people's stuff. And I keep emptying that doggone thing out, and then every once in a while it'll pop up, "Well, she said that 10 years ago." And I'm like, "Oh, really? Are you kidding me?" So just remember to empty your urn or your bucket, whatever you wanna call it, as often as you can. because surrender, burn, release. Right, Judy? Yeah, definitely.
3 years ago, Danny and I were doing a series of shows on letting go of stuff and releasing, because that was right after the Lionsgate, where we'd seen the paths, everybody's paths splitting, and you went left or you went right. And I had this great picture, and it was this woman standing in an old-fashioned train station with giant suitcases beside her, looking at them. And the caption was, "You can travel so much quicker if you leave this all behind." And that's at the speed we're traveling, you can't hold on to everything. I mean, you can, and you're going to end up being angry and snarly and wearing red hats. But I shouldn't have said that. That's not nice.
Well, and that's it, isn't it? We're all living our own lives, and we all kind of are creators, and we see what we see, and these people might be seeing things through their eyes that are a completely different world than we're seeing, on a completely different timeline than we have. So they're right where they're supposed to be.
And they even wear a hat so you can tell.
Yeah. Mary Starshine says, Dolores Cannon said many of her clients had tumors, cancer disappear spontaneously when they fully released and expressed their anger. Yeah. Yeah. And Kali Healer says, call our energy back every single evening and release all that does not belong to each of us. Each generation has different tasks. We sure do.
That's true.
And I just want to say, Debbie at Three Shifting Veils, you were in our healing meditation this morning, dear. So we are keeping an eye on you.
Yeah, 'cause she's not just there. Her son and his family, and one of them's 3 months old, they're in this mess.
It's honey.
Not just I'm facing this. And I always found it was much easier if I'm on my own, I just figure it out. But when I had little kids, little kids, it's tough.
Yeah.
You know,
it is tough. It is tough. And you fight more for your family, don't you, than you do for yourself. I mean, you really.
Flying with kids was easier because I hate airplanes. And I worked for an airline and I flew a lot. I hate airplanes. But when I was with my kids, it was like so wonderful because I was so focused on them. This show's about my need for codependence and having to focus outside myself. But I'd focus on them and I would sort of forget that I was on an airplane. I just had to help them get through it. And they love airplanes.
They travel a lot, don't they?
Sean is in Wisconsin now. My youngest, Susan, she actually spent over a year in Japan working for and flying back and forth across the ocean. Sean lived in Guam and he used to fly back and forth across the ocean. Casey, she likes to travel, but she actually likes to travel on the ground.
Yeah.
She's like me.
Yeah. Sandra says, everybody's talking about makeup and fake fingernails. Sorry not to offend. No fake fingernails for Sandra. Yeah, Sandra, I tried fake fingernails once and I saw them all floating in the pool when I was playing pool volleyball the next day. And I was like, well, there goes $40. We're not going to do that again. But yeah, I wasn't good at stuff like that either.
Okay, let me see. I'm trying to follow. Somebody's passing out love in Kansas. You're in Kansas, so that's why.
Yeah. Well, I'm 10 blocks from Kansas. I'm actually in Missouri.
Oh, so. Yeah, that's that strange place that you meet people. They got to tell you which state they're from, even though they're from the same town.
Yeah, it's all a big metropolis on either side of the state. So my sister lives just across the other side.
There's one thing I know for letting things that have tied to you, karmic energy that you can't seem to get rid of. It's you call in Archangel Michael with this big ass sword. And if you know much about the other angels, you can call in any that you'd like for support. I always get Ariel to come along too. And I get into a quiet state and I ask Michael to cut the cords and swing the sword above me, below me, to the right, to the left, to the front, to the back. And what you actually create with that is you create, if you've ever seen the octahedron where the pyramids are kind of stuck together, you create, it's like you're in the middle of that and all the energy in the world is pushed away from you. So you can just do it on your own. And I used to give little octahedrons. I have buckets of octahedrons here. But I used to give them to people after a reading, and I said, the octahedron in the center of it will hold this reading. So if you want to remember what we talked about, you can hold it. And it was amazing the number of people that came back and said, I kind of forgot what you talked about. And then you told me about something's going to come up. It was a good assignment. I just needed to not worry about myself so much. Just go ahead and do it. And she said, and I was going back to my desk after getting the assignment. Obviously, this is pre-COVID. Going back to my desk to get ready to work on the assignment. And I was digging through my purse to look for my favorite pen to write with. And that little crystal just fell out into my hand. And then I remembered what you said, So you can place your energy in different places so that you can get it out of being in the center of you. That makes you more open to be able to do other things. Yeah. And the first time I cut the cords, I had Michael come cut the cords, I actually felt one of them cut, felt the energy come back in my body that I've been sort of leaking.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now fall's a time, I think, when a lot of us remember when, and we go back in our mind, about where we were. It's because Halloween and Thanksgiving and remember when I started the 8th grade, this happened and all that kind of crap. I don't do that much anymore. It's so long ago. But I think fall's a good time to start cutting away. It's the best time of year to see a tree to cut it because you can kind of still see where leaves are growing like they should. Trim yourself.
Trim. Bora Bora is asking the name of the woman that I recommend on sexual abuse, and she has a YouTube channel, is Rachel Grant. Mm-hmm. And I'll post it at the bottom of this, and I'll post it in here. Mm-hmm. And it's Beyond Surviving. And she's written a couple of books, and she posts stuff all the time.
How do you spell her last name?
Grant, Grant, as in Tom. Okay. Just like, I think, wasn't there President Grant?
Yeah, there was.
Yeah.
Ulysses S. Grant, yes.
Yeah.
Beyond what?
Beyond Surviving. So it's about not just surviving, but finding joy and your little child inside again. So oftentimes we think we have to grow up so fast that we lose that aspect.
On the bottom of the screen.
Oh, thank you. And then also, I've got my this is my Archangel Michael crystal that Reverend Saul gave me.
That's a beautiful cluster.
Yeah, it is really beautiful.
Is that from near your area?
It's from Arkansas.
I was going to say, it's quick.
Yeah. And anyway, I keep that pretty handy. I can't always keep it in my bedroom because it's pretty powerful, but
all those little points on the end of the clear things, they push out power all the time, and they're always looking for your third eye. So that can make it difficult to sleep in a room with something that's going boink, boink, boink.
Yeah. He said it's Archangel Michael and channeling. Mm-hmm. You have to be careful with it where it points.
That's right.
It will make you fly.
It will.
Yeah. And thanks to you, Nancy Jean, I always keep my shungite right here too at my desk because that
grounds you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have this is my piece of obsidian. And if you take it out in the sun, it's got rainbows in it. You can't see them in normal light. In the sunlight, you can see all these rainbows in it.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
And I pulled a card. Since you pulled a card, I decided I can pull a card too. You are a divine facet of the universe. And it's on page. I always read all the books that come with all these things. And this happens to come out of a deck Kyle Gray created.
Oh, I love him.
Do you know how he got started?
Uh-uh.
Well, he was a young psychic, teenage psychic in Scotland. And when you get to a certain age in England, they say they have grant money available to you and you can use it to go to college or you can use it to start a business. So he started his reading business.
Good for him.
I know. Wish we had those kind of policies because then we would not have so many people sent to college that didn't really need to be there. Awakening the ability to see the spiritual level in ultimately your own inner work, personal work, seeing divine beings and angels, and having direct experience with the universe and its byproducts by being able to see yourself because you are but a facet of the universe. I am willing to see my whole self.
Wow. That's it. And when we see our whole selves like that, it does make a huge difference because we don't realize sometimes that we left that child behind or we didn't have a coping skill at that time in our lives, whether it was yesterday or, 50 years ago, to get through that. So we probably did disassociate. Yeah. That's beautiful.
So,
beautiful.
Let's see. Going back to comments.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm trying hard, guys, but it's hard. I get
Yeah.
so interested in what Teri and I get talking about.
I know. Then we get into it, and there you go. Oh my gosh, Mary. Milton is now a category 5. Send energy and prayers to dissipate 100 trillion angels to Florida now. Right, Mary?
Right.
Yeah. 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 And everybody's talking about, when you have kids, it's easier to fight for others. Yeah. It's a lot easier. I think we have a rage, that mama bear instinct or papa bear
instinct.
Comes out to fight for, or whether it's your animals or your children or somebody that's disadvantaged. We come out more in force than we do for ourselves, but really it's all about us. I mean, healing ourselves is the most important thing we can do while we're on the planet, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, weather workers unite. I feel like we're going to remember today talking about this. And
well, it's something if each of us can, maybe it's every time you see or touch water, think about dissipating the water that's coming towards Florida. I find I have to make things up during the day that I can relate it to so I don't forget.
That's a great idea. And I love that you're using a sense to do that.
Oh, yeah.
Touch, smell, any of that, any of your senses or remembering. It makes a big difference.
Yeah. This is going to be a busy week for me. Tuesday night at 6:00, I begin teaching tarot again with Jeffrey.
Oh,
we made the number we need for a class. I still have a couple of spaces available. You can see crystaldirections.nancyjean@gmail.com. I'll send you all the pertinent information. You're not behind the 8 ball. I'm not sending off the class materials to the people till this afternoon. And it's learning tarot. One of the ladies that took it last time, she couldn't figure out why she was finally driven to take it. I mean, she'd had a deck for 20 years, right, sitting on the corner of her desk. And through taking tarot, it made it clear to her what other discipline she was more called to. And then I have a group of people from my last couple classes that meet every week and read with each other, because in order to read, you got to learn how to read. So, but I take the point of view of keywords and to simplify it and to bring it, like you just said, to tie it to water, water that we're worried about hitting Florida, being water that we have around us. That's kind of the way I sensorily get through the world. So that's kind of how I teach. But Jeffrey and I would love a couple more of you want to come along. It's never too late.
Someday I'm going to learn tarot. I know a little bit of it. I work mostly with oracle cards because I've taken a couple of tarot cards or classes, but I'm gonna take yours someday.
It's Kelly that's in Canada that has the campfires on Friday nights.
Yeah, does
okay.
it cats?
Yes.
Yeah, I love her.
I met her through Allie, and she said, I have a deck, but I can't figure it out. It's so hard reading the book, reading the thing, trying to translate.
Yeah.
And I said, well, if you have 3 free hours, because if I'm teaching one person 1-to-1, I can teach it in 3 hours. And so we started with numerology, and then she played with that. And then the next week she came in and we put the numerology in and put it together with the symbols of the cards and the royal cards, the major arcana. And then the last week we spent doing the Fool's Journey, which you start with the Fool and you go through all of major arcana. And it's actually a journey each of us goes through in different parts of our life when you learn it right. And she wrote me a week later and said, my God, I can understand this. And she'd been trying for 5 years. So it's really that by doing it for so long, I figured out how my twisted little brain does it. And it ends up that works for other people.
Wow.
So it's a fun class. You get to be with the people you like. You get to ask lots of questions in these very insecure times. It with all the election stuff coming up, it gives you a vent to ask your election questions with someone else in the room. And Jeffrey's really, he knows the Rider-Waite deck every which direction because that's all he's ever read. And I'm the one who has the 47 different kinds of decks. So I can say, this is a fool in this deck and this is a fool in this deck. And I read reverses, which some tarot readers do not read reverses. They only read cards right side up. And I just started reading reverses because that was in the book, right? But I also think my personal opinion is, and it's people want to read it right side up. That's what you're supposed to do it. But I think you lose half the vocabulary of the cards if you don't read every direction they can lay in. But anyway.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Well,
people are talking about, a lot of people have already voted. I just want to mention in my area, I got a notice the other day from a friend of mine who's like-minded, and she said that some of the women that are coming up for judge, kind of look into it, because I usually would just check off. If I saw a woman running for a judge, I would check her off. A lot of them are coming from the very right wing, and they're there to take away women's rights.
Do your judges not have parties affiliations? Oh shit.
Yeah. Well,
well, then I've had some with party affiliations that I worried about too, but it doesn't. There's a site I really like it. It's called Ballotpedia. It's BALLOTPEDIA, just like encyclopedia, but it's ballot in the front.
Okay.
And it's a nonprofit group, and it's nonpartisan, so you're going to see both sides.
Yeah.
And they send a survey that's related to what the office someone's running to every single candidate. And one of the first things I do is I go through and look at who's running, and I look at who's bothered to send the survey back in. Because when I ran campaigns, we sent every one of those in because people have a right to see you.
Yeah.
And in Ballotpedia, it will tell you, it will actually sometimes direct you to articles about the judges and things. But like in Texas, the judges are connected to political party. I'm of two minds about that. One is it makes voting on voting day a lot easier. But the second part is that I'm not sure they should be tied to a thing because there's a lot of big money that pours into the parties through the judicial end of
Yeah.
it. And, and then there's states like Illinois where they get appointed and then they have to be re-voted in. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to hype my son's station, Sean at CLSB Politics. He just did a show on ranked voting by rank. So you get to vote 1, 2, 3, 4. So if there's 4 candidates running for a seat, you can say, this is my first choice, this is my second choice, this is my third choice. And then what they do is if no one gets to 50%, they knock off the lowest ones that aren't even close, and they take their second choice and put it in until they get one of them over 50%. And people say, well, that sounds like a screwy system. That stopped us from having Sarah Palin in Congress because people voted for their second vote. If there was 3 people voting again that were not Sarah Palin, there was Sarah Palin. She did not reach 50%. The combination of everybody's second choice put the woman that's now in this. She's the first Indigenous person to ever sit for the state of Alaska in Congress. So it's a very effective way. So if you want to go over to CLSB Politics, the show was about 3 days ago, but it's another interesting way to look at voting. And more states are looking at that because it's cheaper because they don't have to have runoffs all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Eliza Bassett saying ranked choice voting. Yes. Mary Petolia.
That's it. Beat Palin.
In Alaska. Yeah. She wore Indigenous dress when she was brought in too, didn't she?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. That was beautiful. Paul had an interesting question if we want to take it.
Sure. Where is it?
A black orb out of the corner of his eye the other day, wanting to know. It's at 11:40. Hello, Teri and Nancy. I saw a black ball this morning and 2 days ago from the corner of my eye, then it left. What does the black ball mean? Thank you.
How did your spirit feel when you saw it? I mean, were you startled? Did you feel threatened? Or did you just feel kind of happier? Oh, something else is in the room with me. I have a couple of years ago it wasn't anything I chose. One night I was happily asleep, and the next thing I knew, I was riding on the back of a dragon named Cecil and going to see the elementals. And I got to learn a lot about the elementals. And since I learned about them, I found out I have a ley line tree, Hogarth, at the edge of my property. And I've learned a lot about how the earth is settling. And this is going to be this year and next year are going to be real interesting in how the earth settles. But one of the things that came back with me was some fairies came back with me. And they're here to keep me company. Except fairies are mischievous little suckers. They ain't Tinkerbell. And they'll take things like move your cards around or move your things around and just to let you know they're around. And sometimes I'll see them as flashes that go by and I'll realize they're in the house. They're very fast. Their frequency is different from ours. And I only see them when I'm in a really good high frequency. But
Wow.
if Paul, if you didn't feel threatened by it at all, you can ask it to come back and maybe make itself plainer to you. If it's really a fairy, leave a piece of candy out in the desk and see if it's there in the morning.
Oh, that's a great idea. Paul said it came by my bed or his bed.
They're coming. Elementals are coming back into our world because more of us are getting to a level where we can see them or comprehend that they're around. And they're really going to help us through the transition of the times that we're going through.
Yeah. And our energy's getting better.
Mm-hmm.
And Mary says, oh my God, I have a lot of fairies at her house. So yeah, I get a lot of orbs. I get a lot of fairies and a lot of entities that come into my house too. I get a lot of those orbs. So Paul, it's up to you if it's like what you feel it is.
I don't feel any bad stuff when I read it.
Yeah, I don't at all.
I don't
Nothing
feel
bad.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, or even perhaps our Archangel Azrael. They
Mm-hmm.
call him the Dark Angel. And he comes in with a darker orb energy, and he's like an angel of transformation. Also, he's really good with for people that are mediums
Mm-hmm.
and people that are grieving. So, but Paul, you have so much fun, and he's like always going to a concert or throwing a
Mm-hmm.
party for his niece or doing all these
Mm-hmm.
exciting things. I think fairies would just love to be around you. That energy, that elemental energy, I can really see
Yeah, and
having
it's
fun.
trying to come back to us. The reason it left was really they disappeared completely from the Celtic run, a lot of the Celtic areas during the Industrial Revolution, when we became so much more invested in the stuff than in the land. I don't know if many of you know the history during the Industrial Revolution when wool became so much more valuable than crops. They just threw the farmers off their land. I mean, people that had farmed for centuries on these lands were thrown off. That's how come they all went to London. I mean, it's not wouldn't be your first choice on my places to go. And it was actually happening all over Europe. And because of that, the elementals told me they went away. They went underground. They're on the planet. They're on the planet like we're on the planet. They're an earth thing. And that was one of the things they kept saying to me is, would you explain to them that we're not aliens? You know, we belong here. Okay.
You know, when you told me that, that made so much sense with the fairies and the elementals,
Mm-hmm.
because I really do feel, and I really do feel like each Earth event that we have, they come out even more
That's
to
true.
help heal.
And you know, there's not a culture that doesn't have a dragon in it,
Hmm.
that doesn't have it in their myths and legends. And they all sound like the word dragon. It's universal through all of them. Sprites and fairies and elves and gnomes and all that, they get named different things.
Yeah. And Paul was outside doing his Halloween stuff too. So, yeah, they love that.
No, they love that stuff.
Oh my God. Right? Yeah. They just love it. Somebody else said they saw a light coming on and off in their living room. And that can often be the same.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here it is. Hugger Greeter says at 11:50.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if I have a spirit around asking due to my light in the living room next to me goes off on occasion.
Yeah, my daughter has one of those lights, and it's one that really helps her read, but it just sometimes it won't turn on. And then all of a sudden will come like I went in there this morning and it's on and it wasn't on last night when I went to bed. So I have no idea. I
Yeah. That could also be a loved one, Hugger
That's
Greeter.
true.
Yeah. Yeah. You'll know. I mean,
They'll give you something else. Now they've got your attention. They'll give you some other key to how to realize who they are. My loved ones must not love me because they never come and visit. Although when my second husband died and I was trying to sell the condo that we had owned together, I had to go do the whole thing. I had to sage the whole place. I had to go into every corner and pray for him to go and be beyond the place. And then I took the Saint Joseph statue and buried it upside down in the ground outside the front door. And that house had been on the market. The condo had been on the market for 9 months, and it was a place where they were all selling, and it was in good shape. It sold a week after I walked through it and cleansed it. But right after he died, we'd come in and light bulbs. They wouldn't go out when we weren't around. They'd like poof and just go off. You know, that was like burning them up. And I finally sat down one night and I said, Bill, you're making me spend a fortune on light bulbs. You got to stop this. You know.
yeah. Yeah. They just, and Sally's bedside light dims and brightens. Yeah. It's just, they like to come in and they like to be noticed, like
Mm-hmm.
Nancy Jean says. And once they're noticed, boom,
A
it's going to
little
be a lot.
a little acknowledgement goes a long way.
Yeah. Yeah. Warrior Girl says, from what I understand, dragons and elementals are from the 26th dimension. Wow.
Okay, warrior girl. That may be true, but Cecil's here. I mean, he's on this when he gets real and combines his energy with mine to take me to where the fairies are, which is a whole thing. They took me to this thing and explained to me kind of what they wanted me to do. And then I guess I didn't do it right for the 2 weeks. I kept saying, you're going to do a whole show on elementals and you're going to talk about your dragon. And I'll show you what my dragon looks like. I think he's still in here. Oh, did I send Cecil away? Oh, he'll never forgive me. Anyway, what happened was, in between the time I went the first time and the second time, a friend of mine, well, Dr. Gail, she called me up and I was telling her about this weird dream I had about a dragon. And she said, and you went through a portal in space? And I said, yes. And she said a friend of hers who's an artist had just sent her 2 pictures that were not the kind of work she normally does. One was a great big picture of a dragon, and it was Cecil. And it was the portal I went through. And Dr. Bell said, you just explained this to me, and I have a picture of it. So I have both of those. They are from dimensions way beyond us, but they were actively part of the world in making and maintaining joy and happiness and connecting us to the earth, connecting us to the trees, they were our connection. We cut the cord. We're the ones who said, oh, we're part of this thing. We're going to build stuff. We're not going to watch what grows. And so they could be in any. The second time Cecil came to get me, we did the whole thing of flying around the world. Then somewhere over the middle of the Atlantic, there was a hole in the ocean, like a whirlpool. And I thought, this could end very badly. And we went down through the hole. And when I opened up, when I woke, he said, you can get off now. And I climbed off his back. By the way, dragons are not scaly. It's like feathery almost. It's very soft and cushy. Anyway, I got off of him. They all came out of the woods again, and it was very Tolkien-esque looking woods. They were all dressed in their formal garb, and they said, you haven't discussed us yet. And I went, yeah. And then they explained to me kind of what each of their roles were. And they said, you will find the literature that's been written by humans that proves that we've gotten into your culture. And I managed to, but the next day I went to get in my car to go to Michael's to go get some frames and stuff. And there was a solid gold dragonfly about this long next to my window. And it would tap, tap, tap. When its wings would hit the window, it would go tap, tap, tap. So it was solid. Then it swerved in front of my car, and it was flying right in front of my car. And I said, y'all are going to stay with me until I do this. I said, okay, I promise. I'll get my act together, and I'll do it tomorrow. And I looked, and the dragonfly had disappeared. And so the next day I did my show, the first one I did on elementals.
Wow.
So they really want us to know that if we open our hearts up to them, and this is going to be a great year to do it. 25's got a great amounts of energy shifts. We're getting planets, big planets, and the older planets, the slow moving ones we're going to have 3 major planet changes this year. And from what I understand from some of the astrologers what they call archetypical astrologers, ones that study the long-term patterns, we have planets that are in signs that have never been in those signs all at the same time. And they're not all in the same sign. It's like all around the wheel. It's changing. That's the big shift. And by 2025, it's going to be crazy how fast things shift. So, and I'm excited. I'm going to get to see it. And I do talk about them. And that's apparently what I'm supposed to do today. My guide's telling me, Addie, yeah, you're supposed to talk about it a while ago. So, sorry, guys. Don't kidnap me in my sleep.
Yeah, everybody's talking about their dragons here. Hugger Greeter says she's a dragon in their Chinese zodiac. And I have a couple of dragons as guides, and one of them is also a shapeshifter, and she turns into Kali Ma.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
Nefertiti and E.T. No. She was a real person.
Yeah. There were a lot of in Egypt there were a lot of what are they
Well,
Arturians?
yeah, there were a lot of crossbreeds and breeds and stuff, but they weren't here in the capacity of an ET the way we think about it. They came on this planet to make changes for this planet.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, wow. Well, that was quick. Boom.
Mhm.
It's already
Yeah,
12. Yeah.
Dim sum one say shenanigans. You got the hardest name to say. Yeah, my
That's
dragon was
great.
a little like full core, except he's full colored.
Yeah. There's a lot of dragons in here. Dragons are that's a really good energy. It's very auspicious to be born in the year of the
Mm-hmm.
dragon. Yeah. I've got a lot of dragons in my house. My husband was a dragon. And
My oldest grandson was born in the year of the dragon, and his school teacher never heard of that. When he was 10 years old, and in this class, Sean was telling her how they'd gotten pregnant up in Seattle, and all the people kept saying, "Oh, did you time it?" And they were like, no. She took an antibiotic and her birth control didn't work. But anyway, that's the end. But Year of the Dragon people are incredibly strong.
Yeah.
And in China, they try to have their kids in the Year of the Dragon. So
they do. Yeah. Yeah. It's very auspicious. And they say not to have too many dragons in your house. Sometimes because the energy can be so strong. But I've got to say, I have a lot of crystals and a lot of dragons in my house.
Well, if there's a lot of crystals cause you trouble, I'm in a world of hurt.
Yeah.
All but behind me is
Right.
crystals. But anyway, thank you for coming and joining us today. We kind of wandered from Medusa to how to express our power.
Which is apropos.
And how to look at how we use our power.
Yeah. Yeah, and how to release. So big stuff. So lots of blessings to everybody out there, and that dissipating that water. What did you say that you use to get in the in-between of all that energy?
Oh, the Michael, I use a fluorite crystal. See if
I love that, because almost everybody has a fluorite crystal. Probably.
Yeah, the little ones that look like little 8-sided pieces. If you can focus your energy into the octahedron, it will be protected on all sides. And there's not a culture that doesn't have a prayer that's like as above, so below, to the left, to the right, to the front, to the back. I mean, they're all native ones do. There's Christian prayers that bring up that same view. There's Jewish prayers that talk about that, from the Kabbalah that talk about that. There's and I suppose there are in other cultures. I just don't know their prayers that well. Yeah.
So I love that. So I think that's a really good way to dissipate that energy, though.
So. Oh yeah, and it gives you, you hold that little thing in your hand, and they're small. You can get them huge. Well, they don't get too huge, but too big to carry around your hand. But they're just delightful.
I love that. Yeah.
Archangel Jophiel, I do like her too. She's very helpful.
Yeah.
My archangel is I just screwed her. She was originally Luna. She is the moon.
Oh. Wow.
So, everybody ready to go to bed for the day?
Nope.
Goodbye.
I'm all charged up now.
Okay, we're all charged up. Go have a lovely day and think good thoughts. Bye-bye.
Bye.